Stasiland. What an absolute banger. That's brilliant. Okay, chapter 19. Klaus. Here we go.
Miriam's drawing and crumple them into my pocket. I put my fingers through the wire and hang onto the fence for a while. Chapter 19. Klaus. Can I come over?
Whoa, just a second there. In media res, starting right in the dialogue. Look at that. Right into the action. No introduction, no exposition. Bang, we're into the dialogue. In media res. So 3 words. Not to patronise you. 3 words. IN media res. RES. PCT. Yeah, in media res. Just gets us straight into the action straight away. It sounds like I've been drinking. I haven't. It's 11:36 on Thursday morning. I've had a cup of tea. That's all. But I don't know. It's just driving me slightly hysterical talking to the wall in here. Okay, let's keep going then with Klaus and the dialogue here.
4. I think I've woken him up. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A visit, Klaus. I need to get out of the house. What I need, in fact, is becoming a habit, an act of hops and malt chemistry. I need to feel good temporarily about plates and walls, old men and rules, bakeries and rugwork, and corridor after corridor of rooms sealed with secret purpose. I need to see a survivor. Okay, he says. Not now, though. Later. All right, see you later then. We're on to our 3rd beer and it's only 6 p.m. Klaus's tremor has stopped and he's changed out of the dressing gown he was in when I arrived to black jeans and a black wind cheater. His hair is motley on his head and motley in his beard. He has a crumpled face with brown teeth and squinty, smiley eyes.
So we're back to the descriptions again, which is understandable. We're meeting Klaus and it's good to know what he looks like, but not the most flattering of descriptions. Crumpled face, brown teeth, squinty eyes. But there's always a bit of both, isn't there? We've got the smiley eyes as well. I mean, I think generally when you read through this chapter, we find her description of him is quite favourable and she quite admires him in a way. But she's always keen to pick out the flaws, isn't she, which we've come to expect.
His hands are large and purplish, the hands of a dedicated smoker. He is grumpy and friendly at the same time, just warming up.
So there again, that oxymoron, I suppose, of grumpy and friendly, always sort of, looking for the warts and everything, warts and all descriptions, sort of the negatives. But there's a sense of friendliness about Klaus as well.
Like most people, I know a little about his life, but I wouldn't mind hearing it from him, a nighttime story. He grumbles at first. What self-respecting icon needs to say how they got that way? But we crack open more cans and he obliges me, relaxing into it.
So that cracking open cans, of course, is a euphemism, isn't it, for drinking beer, drinking alcohol, to loosen their inhibitions and sort of start the conversation flowing better, I suppose. So a bit of pragmatics in that sense, where saying one thing actually means something else. That cracking open cans is obviously about drinking, but it's so obvious that it's kind of a dead metaphor in a way.
He sits soft-bodied in the chair, as if the cleaners have been taken out of him. He assumes the shape of the furniture. We face a coffee table with matches and tins on it, and ashtrays already full of butts and papers and clumps of tobacco like hair.
Now this is a cataphoric reference here to the album cover that he references later on in the chapter from his band. Is it Rempht? I think so. Which has a cover of cigarette butts, doesn't it, and whiskey and ashtrays. That's the one.
Behind that, there's a massive television set with stereo speakers. This room is also Klaus's bedroom and office. There's a mattress on the mezzanine to my left, and underneath it a fax machine, a computer, and synthesizer.
So that little asyndetic list there, just to reinforce how varied, in a way, his living conditions are. So he has a computer and a fax machine and a synthesizer. So there's sort of, I don't know, it's kind of work and play, isn't it, in a way? And it's like a bedsit, isn't it? It's his whole life is in one room, really. So that asyndetic list just kind of shows how much is crammed into that room.
The walls are lined with photographs and posters, and Klaus's dark oil paintings. The one nearest my eyeline has a series of pictures etched into it. It's the evolution of the breast, from pointy to pendulous. This room is Klaus's life. It's the inside of his head.
So, I mean, I know this this isn't Anna Funder's choice to include these, but she has presented it in her own way. So the pictures on the walls of breasts from pointy to pendulous. I don't know. It's just maybe it's the plosives there that and the metaphor of being pendulous as well. Quite funny, isn't it? Sort of again, it's a funny image to conjure up, and it's one that Funder is typical of doing. Sort of the less glamorous aspects of the human body, I suppose, and obviously highlighted together with the plosive alliteration of pointy and pendulous.
The early photographs show Klaus Jentsch before he took his mother's maiden name as a stage name. A clean-cut young man in 1958 wearing a suit and pencil tie, looking down modestly at his double bass. They track his development into a long-haired star with a sheepskin coat and a bass guitar. The most recent ones are tour posters, a group of 6 middle-aged men in an assortment of headbands, beards and sunglasses with raised fists and sweat on their chests. Klaus, though, seems to have become, if anything, more himself. No headband, no glasses, just jeans and a t-shirt and a guitar.
So I guess the listing there as well, just to reinforce, not reinforce, I keep saying that, but to sort of suggest the accoutrements of fame and the and music, I guess, music lifestyle, rock and roll lifestyle. So it's all the paraphernalia that goes with that sort of music career, I guess, the look and the instruments and all the stuff that goes with that.
Klaus Remft is the bad boy of East German rock and roll. The Klaus-Remft combo became the wildest and the most popular rock band in the GDR. Klaus started off playing Chuck Berry and Bill Haley covers in the 50s, and then moved on in the 60s to the Animals, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and in the 70s to Steppenwolf, Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. Often these records were banned outright, so Klaus and his friends listened illegally to Western RIAS radio and recorded the songs on huge tape decks in order to work out the music. They sang, screaming, "I can't get no satisfaction." I'm amazed that the authorities let them get away with the Stones' Satisfaction, a song which, if it became an anthem for desire of all kinds in the West, was bound to be a rallying cry against the whole system in the East. Did they know what it meant, I ask?
So, interesting how Funder's phrased this. There's parallelism there about the West and the East, ending in that sort of inverted epistrophe, because you've got West inverts to East. So it is, in a sense, epistrophe, because you've got the ending with the same, not the same word in this case, but a geographical location. So it's inverted epistrophe at the end. And it's certainly parallelism there. This song that if it became an anthem for desire in the West, it was also a rallying cry in the East. So just showing how significant a song like Satisfaction would be for both sides, really.
We didn't know what it meant, Klaus laughs, prodding down tobacco and small burnt beads of hash into a white-handled pipe. His laugh is deep and innocent. He is a man with the gift of pleasure. His smile heats the room.
So now the description becomes much more warm, doesn't it? Literally, with his laugh is deep and innocent. His smile heats the room. That metaphor there heats the room. You know, brings joy, brings warmth to their conversation as well. I think I'm sure you've spotted it as well, but just the way that the narrator read this, it wants to, the push wants to be on we. We didn't know what it meant, and not just we didn't know what it meant, but even we didn't know what it meant. The song Satisfaction, but she kind of missed that emphasis there. But never mind, it doesn't really make much difference.
Over time, the Klaus-Remft combo played more and more of their own songs. And when Gerolf Panache joined in 1969, the lyrics suggested rebellion, poignancy and hope, or, as one magazine put it, soul, frailty and pain.
I mean, the whole book's littered with these, isn't it? These triadic lists, and I'm not going to stop for each one of them, but as you see them, please feel free to jot them down. It just, and I think the effect is always the same. It's to suggest that sort of craftedness of this, and it's what gives this book that sort of fiction or novel-esque style of being quite crafted and honed, and it has that feel to it. So whenever you spot those triadic lists, please just mark them on, because there are absolutely loads of them.
In the ersatz world of Ellipsi, Remft was something authentic and unauthorized. But there was only one record company, Amiga, and Klaus says that the lyrics to every one of their songs were changed before they could be recorded. Remft took, he says, the holy things of the GDR, the army and the wall, and sang about them because they wanted to scratch the GDR at its marrow. Klaus
Just an interesting point there. What a metaphor to give, but it's also quite anatomical to scratch the GDR at its marrow, the sort of very inside of its bones. It's quite an anatomical reference to make, and not one that we're unfamiliar to with Thunder, because she uses it a lot and she continues to in this chapter as well. But just another example there of where she does tend to make things quite human, even down to the molecular or marrow level of humanity. It's an interesting thread to pick up on, I think, for Thunder.
Gets up from the chair, his movements quick as a cat, although maybe I'm starting to see things slower. I'm trying to think what it would mean to have all your experience of rock music brought to you live, but second-hand, wondering, did Jagger, Plant and Daltrey know of their doppelgangers in the East?
Just that reference, the use of the German word doppelganger there is particularly telling, isn't it? Because, of course, they were literally German replicas of those three rock stars: Mik Jegger, Robert Plant, and what's he called? Daltrey. Roger Daltrey, that's him.
But as soon as Klaus puts the music on, I am a believer. There is something about good rock that defies thought. It is pure and bass at the same time, and it moves you inside in ways you can't say. The singer, Christian Kuno Kunert, was trained in a church choir in Leipzig, and his voice hits you like the truth.
That's a nice metaphor as well, isn't it? Or figurative choice, anyway. Voice hits you like the truth. Well, it doesn't hit you, because that's metaphorical, but it's wrapped up in that simile of like the truth. And I'd say it kind of works as zeugma, doesn't it, as well, really? Yes, it is zeugma. Well, I mean, it's kind of barely, but I think it works. It functions as zeugma, let's put it that way. It hits you like the truth. Well, the truth can't hit you, so it's playing on that verb hit. But we all know what it means. So it's metaphorical, but it does touch on zeugma, I think, as well, if you wanted to really stretch it when you're analysing it.
He sings their famous Die Ketten werden knapper, the chains are getting tighter, and the ballad of Little Otto, who longed to reach his brother in the West. Klaus sits down again and puffs happily. When the songs are over, he keeps talking. Renf was not permitted to play in towns, so they played to enormous crowds which came out to the villages. Woodstock every day, he grins. You know, for us, the GDR wasn't just Stasi, Stasi, Stasi. It was sex and drugs and rock and roll, he says in English. By drugs, he means alcohol and cigarettes, which were all the drugs they had, but they made the most of them. I mean, we really lived, he says, and it was fun. Some towns we went to, the main street would have its buildings painted only halfway up. The top part would be bare grey concrete. He looks at me as if he has posed a riddle, which he has. It was because when Honecker came through, that was the level he could see to from the back seat of the limousine. They didn't have enough paint to go further up. I know about this, and about the butcher's shops full of small goods for the drive-by, which would vanish again after Honecker or other officials had been through. Klaus finds all this hysterically funny. Then he says, this society, it was built on lies, lie after lie after lie. The emperor has no clothes. The buildings are half naked.
Run away from me a bit fast there. Yeah, that metaphor built on lies and the repetition of lies, of course. Well, this is in speech, so it's not something we can analyse in terms of Thunder's style, but it's just worth being aware of there that she's included this for that reason, so it fits in with her way of writing as well. She's edited and chosen what to include and what not to include. And then this exophoric reference to the emperor has no clothes, that is Thunder's words. Those are Thunder's words. And it's that exophoric reference to the emperor's new clothes, isn't it? The fairy tale. And the metaphor, the buildings are half naked. It's stretching that metaphor. It's an extended metaphor to sort of create a very familiar and ridiculous image of buildings having no clothes. It's just stretching that idea a little bit further.
Renf might have started off with borrowed Western rock songs, but there were so many lies that singing the truth guaranteed them both hero and criminal status. By the mid-70s, the band embodied a lethal combination of rock, anti-establishment message, and mass adoration. They were shaggy men with bell-bottoms and attitude.
Zeugma alert. Zeugma! Shaggy men with bell-bottoms and attitude. So taking that word with there to stretch it across both bell-bottoms and attitude. And I think, attitudes put last to increase the emphasis there. So they've got something physical, the bell-bottom flared trousers, but they've also got something emotional, they've got something psychological, they've got attitude. So it's sort of incrementum as well within those two things for effect.
were hot, they were rich by GDR standards, and they were way too explosive for the regime. Performers needed a license to work. In September 1975, Rempf were called to play for the Ministry of Culture in Leipzig to have theirs renewed. Klaus gets up again to reach for a folder under the mezzanine. "I can look up the details of my life now in the files," he smiles, "which is just as well." He once referred to the state of his brain as dog food. I like him for his self-knowledge and smile back. Shortly before the licence renewal hearing, he was offered a passport, hard currency, and a smooth ride through life, here or in the West, if he would separate from two of the most politically outspoken band members, Panach and Kunert. He refused. "I knew then that was a death sentence for us," he says. "It must have taken guts to turn that down." He shrugs. "It was much worse under Hitler," he says. "We would have been whisked off to a concentration camp." The smoke is sweet and time is losing its grip on the evening.
We've seen this before with many other conversations, namely with, is it Julia? I think it was. When we get brought back to the present, we're sort of lost in the narrative for a while, and then we're brought back to the present with something either very gritty and very real, or in this case, something quite romantic and quite figurative. So here, the smoke is sweet, and just that sibilance of that phrase, again, it feels like something from a novel, feels very fictional. And time is losing its grip on the evening. What a lovely phrase. Personifying time. Time is losing its grip on the evening. Really evocative and sort of abstract and dreamy, isn't it, the way it's written there? And something you'd normally find in a novel, not something you'd find in a gritty non-fiction book like this one. So she's really playing with genre conventions there, as she does throughout the whole book, but just that's a really great example of one of those.
There is a guilelessness about Klaus, for a rock star. None of his answers come pat. "It's hard to describe," he says. "On the one hand, I suppose it shows character or something, but on the other, if you're honest, you know you were shitting yourself." He starts laughing. Then he stops. "It looked like we'd all go to prison. That would have been the usual thing," he says soberly. "And people there were treated worse than animals. Of course we didn't want that." Now that he has the documents from his file, he can see the sequence of events from the other side. He flicks through the folder, then stops. "This is funny," he says. "This was from Honecker to Milka." He reads, "Dear Eric, please attend to the case of Jensch Klaus as speedily as possible. Regards, Eric." He laughs. Get that? From one Eric to another. But it could have quickly stopped being funny. At one point, Milka asked his officers in Leipzig, "Why can't you just grab them? Why aren't they liquidated?" But Rempf members were too famous to handle so directly. Klaus turns more pages and finds a formal complaint from the administration of the Clubhaus Marx Engels, where Rempf had performed a fortnight before. It is to Comrade Ruth Eulenschlegel, chairperson of the licensing committee they were about to face. "You like this one," he says, and reads it out. Klaus is the only person I know who gets such distinct pleasure from the storytelling in their file. The clubhouse administration complained about the group's drinking. "After the end of the concert, approx 40 bottles of wine were found. It is incomprehensible to us that a musical ensemble should require the consumption of such a quantity of alcohol to attain the right mood." It complained about belching into the microphone, use of words such as shit. I start to laugh, harder than this is probably worth, but who cares? Klaus is swinging a leg over the side of the chair and laughing too. He continues, "We protest the use of inflammatory calls from the stage, such as, 'It's the society that's decadent, we are the opposite. Today I feel free. There are people sitting in this room reporting on us,' or 'You are the audience that will experience the group Rempf for the last time because we are about to be banned.'" Klaus's laugh moves down to his chest and he starts to cough.
That bringing back to the present again, we get lost in the narrative, lost in the stories, and then we're jerked back to the narrative, back to the present, with usually something quite anatomical or appearance-based. And here we found it with Julia about her face and the way she looked at things. We've got this now about Klaus's laugh moves down to his chest and he starts to cough. So again, there's a sort of tugging away at this sort of, yes, he's this jolly, funny man, but then we're sort of tugging away at his health a little bit with starting to cough with a deep cough. There's sort of a worry there, isn't there, about his health? So she pulls back to this sort of anatomical again, and the sort of the slightly less, I don't know how to say it really, just, I was going to say slightly less glamorous, but I don't mean that. I just mean like exposing everything, be it the sort of the nice sides, the positivity, the glamour, romance of the stories, but also the literal coughing up, and it's back to bodily fluids again. I don't think that's my emphasis or Funder's. I think it's probably hers. I'm going to blame her. But this sort of coughing and bodily functions, really.
Takes a long draught of beer and then starts rolling a joint. I had some Western money, he says, so before the licensing hearing I bought a small cassette recorder from an intershop. When performing, Klaus holds his guitar idiosyncratically upright, more like a double bass player. He runs the strap over his left shoulder, down his back and between his legs, encircling his body. While they were setting up to play for the committee, he turned the cassette recorder on and hid it between his guitar and his groin, held up by the strap. But they didn't get to play. Comrade Oilschlegel asked him to approach the desk. She said the committee would not be listening to the musical version of what you have seen fit to put to us in writing, because the lyrics have absolutely nothing to do with our socialist reality, the working class is insulted, and the state and defence organisations are defamed. Klaus leans in and picks up his tin of tobacco. And then she said to us, "We are here to inform you today that you don't exist anymore." There was silence. One of the band members signalled to a roadie to stop setting up. Kuno asked, "Does that mean we're banned?" "We didn't say you were banned," Comrade Oilschlegel said. "We said you don't exist." Klaus is flicking his Zippo, trying to get the flame to lick his spliff.
More personification there, the flame licking. We had it with was the sun licking the vegetables, maybe in the last chapter, I think, in the allotments, and now we've got that personification again of the flame licking his spliff. It's that again, and she also brings us back to the present. We've got the story with Comrade Oilschlegel. You're welcome. But then we're then drawn back to the narrative. We're reminded this is real and it's happening now because of the way in which we cut back to Klaus trying to light his spliff with a lighter, with a Zippo lighter. So it's almost cinematic in the way that she cuts from scene to scene to remind us that it's real. It's not unusual for a non-fiction text like this to do that, but it's certainly something she does very regularly, even with very small details that we might not think are important. But she gives us those details because they're the human details, they're the everyday, the banal, really, the mundane, but actually it's what most of life is made of, isn't it, those little details.
He sucks and looks over it at me and starts exhaling, laughing. Then I said, "But we're still here." She looked me straight in the face. "As a combo," she said, "you no longer exist." They were dismissed. Klaus managed to pass the tape to his girlfriend, Angelica. She didn't know what it was, he says, but she knew it was important. Angelica hid it in her scarf and took it back to their flat. When he got home after drinking all afternoon in the Ratskeller, Klaus wrote Fats Domino in big letters on the cassette and put it up on the shelf. Angelica had a Greek passport, which meant she could travel to the West. The next day Klaus asked her to go over to West Berlin for a day trip, to get toothpaste or whatever. He couldn't be sure she wouldn't be strip-searched at the border, so she didn't take the tape, but he wanted the authorities to see she'd been over and back. Then he let it be known in Leipzig that he had made a recording of the decree of the licensing committee, that it was now at the RIAS, Radio in the American Sector, radio station in West Berlin, and that if anything happened to them, it would be broadcast immediately. It is hard to say how much protection that gave them, if any. Remph records disappeared from the shops overnight. The band ceased to be written about or played on the radio. The recording company Amiga reprinted its entire catalogue so it could leave them out. In the end, it was as they had said. "We simply did not exist anymore," he says. "Just like in Orwell." Rumours were put about by the state that the band had split up, that it was in difficulties. It couldn't play. Some members wanted to stay in the GDR, others knew they'd have to leave. Panach and Kunert were arrested and imprisoned until August 1977, when they were bought free by the West. The other two, the more unpolitical ones, Klaus says, stayed in the East with their manager. He shifts in his chair.
Back to the present again. He's shifting in his chair. It reminds us that he's telling this now to her. And there's a little bit about, I don't know, there's something about shifting in his chair that shows he's uncomfortable. It's the very small detail that most writers would have left out, but Funder brings it in because she spots those things. She notices the human behaviour of shifting, and it's a chink in his armour, isn't it? It's something which shows that he's vulnerable. It's something that he's uncomfortable talking about.
"Have you heard of the group Carousel?" he asks. "No." Klaus explains that the manager who stayed with the pliable members turned out to be a Stasi man. Under him, Remft regrouped as Carousel and went on to record Remft songs, note for note. "They copied us so exactly you can't tell," Klaus says, "whether it's Remft or it's Carousel. The Stasi was satisfying the needs of the people, but with a band it could control." "Weren't you furious?" He shrugs. Someone else might have found this a betrayal, reason to dwell on this part of their life. After all, it marked for Klaus the beginning of a 15-year hiatus. But he has the gift of taking things easy. Cushioned by alcohol, his landings are soft. He seems incapable of regret, and anger evaporates off him like sweat.
Oh, Anna Funder, back to bodily fluids again, isn't she? Not my words, the words of Funder, don't get me wrong. So the metaphor, they're cushioned by alcohol. It's a nice metaphor, isn't it? Cushioned by alcohol. His landings are soft, and she extends that metaphor, stretches it to sort of, the idea that he's falling and landing on a soft cushion provided by alcohol. So it's a metaphor, but it's quite derogatory, isn't it? In a way, really, it does tell us that he's falling, and that therefore, yes, his landings are soft, but he's still landing all the same. And anger evaporates off him like sweat. Is again, it's another metaphor, isn't it? But it's one drawn from bodily fluids. Good old Funder. What's left in terms of bodily fluids? Not much, really, is there, for her to use in her figurative choices. Let's see what else she comes up with.
From the end of 1975, Klaus was left with nothing to do, no one to do it with. After the usual chicanery from the authorities, he was let out with his girlfriend into West Berlin. It was hard to go from money and fame to nothing. Remft's cachet did not translate over the wall. He was bewildered. His fans were rebels, and they were not here. Klaus worked for years in the West as a sound man in the theatre. After the wall came down, he found out that we'd become a cult band in the GDR. Our records were more expensive than a Pink Floyd album. Since then, the band members have been getting back together, but the lineup has changed, and Panache, their wordsmith, died. I've been reading about Panache's death lately. He died prematurely of an unusual kind of cancer, as did Jürgen Fuchs and Rudolf Barrow, both dissidents and writers. All of them had been in Stasi prisons at around the same time. When a radiation machine was found in one of these prisons, the Stasi File Authority began to investigate the possible use of radiation against dissidents. What it uncovered shocked a people used to bad news. The Stasi had used radiation to mark people and objects it wanted to track. It developed a range of radioactive tags, including irradiated pins it could surreptitiously insert into a person's clothing, radioactive magnets to place on cars, and radioactive pellets to shoot into tyres. It developed hand pump sprays so Stasi operatives could approach people in a crowd and impregnate them with radiation, or secretly spray their floor at home so they would leave radioactive footprints everywhere they went. Rudolf Barrow's manuscript was irradiated so it could be traced to recipients, even in the West. To detect the marked person or object, the Stasi developed personal Geiger counters that could be strapped to the body and would silently vibrate if the officer got a reading.
Sorry, I missed that there. Just went a bit fast. What an unpleasant metaphor, the idea of impregnating people with radiation. I suppose, again, it's back to bodily function, isn't it? It's a very anatomical metaphor to use. It's typical Funder. But what a horrible idea. I mean, what a horrible thing anyways. It's abhorrent, isn't it? But yeah, just thought I'd spot that metaphor there.
And in the prison and remand centres, the Stasi sometimes used radiation machines as well as cameras where the prisoners' mugshots were taken. The File Authority report was cautious. It found no evidence that radiation was used to kill off marked men and women, but it did find that it was used with reckless disregard for people's health, and it recommended that former prisoners of the Stasi get regular medical checkups. Although Panache died, Kuno is well, and he is now fronting the reformed Klaus-Remft combo. They are on tour again through the old GDR, playing to sell-out crowds hungry for something that was theirs, that was untainted, and that was good. They play a mixture of old and new songs. Their 1997 CD, 40 Years Klaus-Remft Combo, included, part joke, part revenge, and part explanation for the lost years, the authentic 1975 recording of the Oilschlegel interchange, declaring them to no longer exist. Their latest album is called As If Nothing Had Happened. The cover is a picture of a full ashtray, empty beer cans, and an open bottle of whiskey.
So there's that reference that was made earlier in the chapter, that we called it a cataphoric reference there. It's now here is that reference, and it's used again actually just towards the end of this chapter, isn't it, over the page. So it becomes quite an important symbol of his lifestyle, really. Sort of the ups and the downs, really.
Our conversation is sliding back and forward. Klaus is still thinking about my question of whether it took courage to turn down the initial offers to leave or to play along with the Stasi. I don't know whether it was courage, he says. More like some kind of naivety that protected me, I think. I think he's right here, but it's a naivety that is carefully nurtured and maintained, an innocence that he did not let them damage. I mean, we didn't all get huge villas on the Mergelsee like the Purdys, but I can look at myself in the mirror in the morning and say, Klaus, you did all right. Material things are not what matter to me. He leans back. The smoke leaving his mouth obscures it in a haze of grey and grey beard. I think the Stasi people have been punished enough. How do you mean? Well, if they've got any conscience at all. And if not? I think of Herr Vins and Herr Christian and Herr Koch and the different kinds of conscience there are. I'm not that interested, he says. I didn't let them get to me. This, I think, is his victory. This is what stops him being bound to the past and carrying it around like a wound. If there was internal emigration in the GDR, there was also, perhaps, internal victory.
Back to the anatomical again, carrying it around like a wound. What an interesting simile. But similarly anatomical as the other ones have been. So she's keen to bring things back to the human, to bring things back to the human body and the fallibility of the human body. It would seem that seems to be something that she uses as an image regularly. So when you're building up this evidence bank of things that she uses, that surely must be in there as one of the things that she draws upon in the way in which of describing people and particularly their personalities and their foibles. Really, their sort of weaknesses are often compared back to the frailties of the actual human physical body.
He looks at me. Over the evening he seems to have become more insightful and nimble-minded, while I am inert as a sponge. Do you want to hear something beautiful? He asks. I nod. He puts on a video of the band performing a song Panache wrote shortly before he died. Kuno looks now like a butcher or a bikie, but his voice is mellow and grand, fine as it ever was. I sing my blues for a man who could tell you how red the dreams were in the ruins where the concrete towers are now. And do you want to know what's left of that man's dreams? Then ask the walls of cell 307 in the Hohenschönhausen. I sing the blues in red for one who can't hear me, as a child in the dark sings a song to himself. From this moment the song soars and nothing else exists. I have no body, and time stops passing.
Back to Funder's narrative here. So there's not much to say about the song itself, because of course that's not Anna Funder that's written it. It's just the song, isn't it? But the way she responds to it, I think, is interesting. And she says that she has no body and time stops passing. So you've got that metaphor there of again that sort of very abstract, surreal image that she creates, that she's sort of drifting out of herself, an out of body experience almost because of the power of the lyrics and the sort of musicality of the thing. We've already heard that before when she talks about back a little bit when he plays some music. And she feels that sort of time has stopped, and it happens again here.
Klaus stretches back in his chair. When it finishes, he says, You can't let it eat you up, make you bitter. You've got to laugh where you can. He's right, of course, and to drink. By my reckoning, I'm pacing him at about 1 to 3, but I'm not so sure of my counting. He picks up a guitar and starts to stroke it absent-mindedly, lovingly across its curved wooden body. I see through the bottom of my glass, the table, the ashtray, and the cans of beer. They look weirdly small and far away. I take my face out of the glass in a hurry and realise it's the CD cover I'm looking at. But the table is covered in ashtrays and beer cans, the same scene in 2 different sizes. It's time to go.
So that image there that was cataleptically referenced early in the chapter is now back again in double here. And it's a powerful image that Funder's decided to really maximise, I think, here, because it represents him. It represents his sort of self-destructive lifestyle, I think. And the fact that she's blurring these 2 images frightens her that she might fall into this trap too, I think. So then the short sentence, it's time to go, is her realising that she could very easily fall into this lifestyle too if she's not careful.
I don't feel the cold. I don't feel much. Rolling stone. Stone rolling home. The cobbles are wet, and the street lamps make puddles of yellow light on the ground. I think of my friend in his room, singing himself happy.
So, I mean, that's dear me, an end of the chapter that's tinged with sadness, isn't it? I think of my friend in his room singing himself happy. I don't know how you feel about that, but that makes me feel quite sad. Maybe as I sit here in my room by myself, talking into this microphone, worrying about my own mental health. I'm not sure. It seems quite. There's bathos there, I think. Well, no, sorry, not bathos. There's pathos there, because it's quite a tragic image, I think. This sort of once famous, successful musician now in a one-room bedsit full of ashtrays, full of cigarettes and beer cans and things. It just seems a bit tragic, and I think she feels that too. So it's typical of Funder, isn't it, to bring things back down again with a bit of a bump, and we've got that here. She brings it back down to this quite sad ending and sort of sympathetic ending and pitying ending to the chapter. But that'll do us for chapter 19, and then we're going to have chapter 20. We're in the 20s, thank goodness, and we're almost there. We've got 8 more chapters to go. So next one is Herr Bock, and I will see you then.